For over 3 decades, everyone has been talking about Big Brother. They believe that it would all lead to martial law and concentration camps. It's hard for any American to imagine concentration camps on American soil in this so-called 21st century democracy. The notorious gulags of Russia, the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. But it has happened before on American soil, where U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt rounded up hundreds of thousands of Japanese Americans under Executive Order 9066.
What would you do if government officials knocked on your door and said you had 1 week to pack up your belongings and move to a government-run camp?
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, our west coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them American citizens, 1/3 aliens. We knew that some among them were potentially dangerous. Most were loyal. But no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population if Japanese forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move.
Japanese Americans were given a week to evacuate their homes and report to an assembly center. They were allowed to bring only the baggage they could carry. Many sold valuable personal possessions for pennies on the dollar. More than 100,000 people eventually relocated to the camps. About 2/3 were American citizens. Living conditions in the camps were difficult and sometimes harsh. Many residents lived in large barracks. Meals were served in mess halls, and the camps were ringed by barbed wire and armed guards. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld the legality of the internment camps, and the policy remained in place for nearly 3 years.
Democracy is tyranny. The American government has established laws that permit the most extreme and perverse liberties today, while at the same time stripping away God-given human freedoms. The U.S. military has actively and with the most extreme force propagated a form of tyranny on nations all over the world. Sitting here now in 2018, it's clear to say that the world government has far surpassed the imaginations of authors who have propagated totalitarian agendas, like what was depicted in George Orwell's 1984, and especially those implemented by the Nazi Third Reich. These writers are critical to their campaigns of terror. They are the pen behind them, the word that controls the populations and gathers them toward their destructive cause. Writers such as the infamous Jesuit ghost priest known as Father Stempfel, who helped Adolf Hitler write Mein Kampf, the very book that was used to take complete control over Germany. It's strange flash forwarding to today and reading articles on AOL titled Hitler Expert Says President Trump Pulls from Mein Kampf to Normalize Tyranny. The Independent also released an article claiming that Donald Trump is using Mein Kampf as a playbook. But what isn't strange, and is actually perfectly clear, there is a connection between Jesuit speechwriters and initiating tyranny.
Thomas Paine wrote the pamphlet Common Sense, and it is stated, if you study historians relate that the pamphlet Common Sense was the writing that brought about the Declaration of Independence. In fact, Thomas Paine uses that phrase in Common Sense. Paine wrote that nothing can settle our affairs so expeditiously as an open and determined declaration for independence. What's interesting is that Thomas Paine, at that point, was not even an American citizen. He was an Englishman. He was in England, and he met Benjamin Franklin. Paine also published the Crisis Pamphlet series, which were read aloud by George Washington to his troops. On Paine's tombstone is written that Common Sense was the pamphlet that stirred the American colonies to independence. It reads that John Adams said, Without the pen of Paine, the sword of Washington would have been wielded in vain. Then below it reads, history is to ascribe the American Revolution to Thomas Paine. So right there on his tombstone, they're openly ascribing the American Revolution to Thomas Paine and saying that at a literary level, at the level of setting forth a philosophy and the ideas, Paine's contribution was equal to that of George Washington, really. Once the revolution was over, Paine then published his true thoughts about Christianity and the Bible. He wrote, "When I see throughout the greater part of this book, the Bible, scarcely anything but a history of the grossest vices and a collection of the most paltry and contemptible tales, I cannot dishonor my Creator by calling it by his name." While some have accused Paine of being an atheist, his defenders are quick to point out that he most certainly believed in a God, just not the God of the Bible.
It's no wonder that some of the US presidents of our time, who were known for secretly holding these ambitions, have signed executive orders to make these things possible, and they all had Jesuit speechwriters. Nixon, Reagan, the Bushes, and Obama, placing all of the buttons on the table for Donald Trump. But he's stable enough to not push them, right?
Now, I don't know that we're going to make a deal. I don't know. We might not. But it would be much easier for me to be so tough. The tougher I am on Russia, the better. But you know what? I want to do the right thing for the American people. And to be honest, secondarily, I want to do the right thing for the world. If Russia and the United States actually got together and got along, and don't forget, we're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. There's no upside. We're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are they. I've been briefed, and I can tell you one thing about a briefing that we're allowed to say, because anybody that ever read the most basic book can say it. Nuclear holocaust would be like no other. They're a very powerful nuclear country, and so are we.
We have to ask,